Stefan and Jim and Matt and others. This kind of feels like a Genius Network meeting. We were just together last week. And I love what Dan Sullivan said about Genius Network. He says, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I always want to be in a room where everybody's getting smarter. And that's what I find in Genius Network. I love that quote from Dan Sullivan. So we're going to see a little bit of that on display today. Of course, Dean Jackson has been in Genius Network.
Timothy, you got muted.
Oh, Tim got muted all of a sudden.
And he's still over there dancing and singing.
There we go.
Somebody on your end did that. Anyway, what I was saying was we've got really, really smart people in Genius Network. And so if you can imagine being with Stephan Spencer and Dean Jackson and Rick and Matthew and Jim and these others, it's just a remarkable experience. So before I start the official announcement or introduction, anyone interested in Genius Network, by the way, it's really difficult to remember this URL, geniusnetwork.com.
Hey there.
Go check it out. Then you can hang out with these guys all the time. Okay, let me go ahead and make an official introduction here, and then we'll get started. And just want to welcome you. You know, Joe Polish is on sabbatical, of course. We miss him, but he's having a great time from what I understand. And we'll see Joe in about 10 more months. But Dean just does a brilliant job with these. So we're delighted to be with everyone. So welcome, everyone. And we're going to get started in 4 seconds. Stephan Spencer is an SEO expert, founder of interactive agency Net Concepts, and best-selling author. He has 3 books published by O'Reilly. They are The Art of SEO, Social E-commerce, and Google Power Search. He's optimized the websites of some of the biggest brands in the world, including Chanel, Volvo, Sony, and Zappos. Stefan hosts 2 popular podcast shows, Get Yourself Optimized and Marketing Speak. Stefan is also a Genius Network member since 2018. So I introduced to you, of course, Dean Jackson and Stephan Spencer.
Wow. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Now, this is going to be very exciting. Stefan, I'm excited that you're here. This is, always a topic that people have a lot of mystery around. There's a lot of mystery around how these search engines work and SEO, this magic witchcraft that you perform. So I'd love to maybe have, in your words, talk about what the importance of this is, or why you've kind of dedicated yourself to this pursuit and what can come of it.
Yeah. So it's really fun to break apart and put back together something like an algorithm, or think of it kind of like an engine that you tear apart and you rebuild. And I love figuring things out, like poking and prodding at the black box that is Google. And I am so excited to get breakthrough and then share it with others. And yeah, it lights me up. And I like demystifying how search engines work and how Google works, because it puts the power back into our hands instead of seeing this as, like you said, black magic or witchcraft or voodoo. It's science. I know it's ironic given that I have a book titled The Art of SEO, but it
Just
is
hold
really
that book
more
sideways
science.
for 1 second. Don't slide past that. Hold this. This is your calling card, which I think has been one of the greatest ever, just from a marketing standpoint. That book, it's simple. You could do it on your own. Here's everything you need to do. And
yeah, it's just a few things. It really is only 994 pages of stuff, and you're going to be golden.
Yes.
And the best part about it, it's got a hummingbird on the cover.
Yeah, that's easy. That means it's simple. That's funny. So I love that cracking the code element of it too, because I look at that's what direct response is, and human behavior, if you can find the right words to put on a postcard that get people to go to a landing page and get them to leave their name and their email address and the right words to say, it's all very, what I call, what I crack to is algorithms, marketing algorithms. You know, we figure out what's the right way to say things and the right things to do. But your outcome of the SEO is traffic. That's really the thing that you know, people see as, how can I get to be number one on Google, or how can I get how can I use it? So is that really the most important outcome of it? That is it traffic is the thing, or are there other more important things with in doing SEO? Or I'm interested, because
What a great question.
Yeah.
It's
I look at it honestly,
really important to know what.
Yeah, I'll just, where I'm coming from as a marketer, I come from that it's I can predictably buy traffic, and I know what I'm working with, kind of thing. And to me, if you don't mind me playing the role of an advocate for business owners who may not know how it all works, kind of thing, is SEO the way to is the most important thing that you get traffic? Is that what the outcome that we're comparing it to?
I guess so, but on a deeper level,
Okay.
I would say the outcome is to change the world.
Mm,
And you're just using Google as a vehicle.
okay.
So if I want I'm in Abundance 360. Many of Genius Network members are. There's this thing called the MTP, the Massively Transformational Purpose, and mine is to elevate the consciousness of all humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to help my clients rank #1 in Google for all the keywords they possibly care about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a step in that direction, I suppose, but I have a much higher purpose. My sole purpose is more aligned with elevating human consciousness and getting us to be kinder and more loving and more conscious. So I see this as a vehicle, and Google is like the operating system of the internet. It's the quickest, most efficient, most direct path between points A and B. Somebody is Googling you, your business, your services, products, your competitors. You need to show up, because otherwise you're not in their consideration set. You're not. And remember the days of the white pages and the yellow pages, right? So you might be in the white pages, but you're not in the yellow pages.
Yes.
In the area that they're looking for, in the topic space and the niche or industry, and thus you're invisible. And if that is what's holding you back from reaching your outcome of changing the world, changing how people think about your topic, your niche, your industry, helping them to, reach greater heights, amplify their message, and it's not happening because you've made a mistake, or your team or your webmaster has made a mistake in configuring your web server so that it's not optimized for search. It's kind of de-optimized. It's anti-SEO. Then you don't get your outcome and change the world. So that's sad, and we got to fix that. So that's how I see SEO fitting into the bigger picture. Yes, you want to delegate tasks and get things done, but you're much better off focusing on the end game, right? So begin with the end in mind. And if you delegate, for example, an outcome instead of a task, you're going to get a better outcome for yourself, your business, your family, your community, than if you just say, here's this task, here's this task, here's this task, or here's this traffic source, here's this traffic source, here's this traffic source. Let's plug them all in and, create some funnels and so forth. That's, I don't know, that misses the bigger picture for me.
So when you say that, like looking at the bigger purpose of enlightening the world, or getting people access to information, you're saying that if people have knowledge or information that they want to get out there, and they're not properly doing the right things so that that information can get out there. They're missing out on their opportunity to make whatever impact it is that their purpose is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Uh-huh.
Anil Gupta. I don't know if you know him, the
I
author
do.
of
Yeah.
Immediate Happiness. Great guy. He
Yeah.
once told my wife, because you're not getting your message out there at the time. I don't know if she was podcasting yet. She's got a great podcast that's been going for like 5 years now. Stellar
Yeah.
Life is the name of it. But at the time, I don't think she was doing that yet. And he said, because you're not stepping up and doing the thing that's going to get your message out there,
Mm-hmm.
people are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck a chord with her. And she got some stuff in order pretty quickly after that. And I always remembered that, because you're not stepping up. And I'm not talking about her, I'm talking about all of us.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying.
Mm-hmm.
People are lost. They're depressed. They're sad. They're unfulfilled. They're not getting their soul purpose fulfilled.
Yes.
So yeah, we need to step up.
Wow, I get it. That's amazing. And it's true when you really think about it, that if you do have information that can change somebody's life, if it's not in front of them at the right time, it's not doing them any good. That's true. So how, the way I look at it, if that's the outcome, that I'm interested to hear the parallels of buying because you can buy the top positions in Google for any keywords that you want, kind of instantly, and have that predictability
on the paid side
of the traffic. Yeah, on the paid side. And so I want to compare, in your mind, like the case for doing the effort, because everybody kind of talks about, well, you get free traffic from Google. But if we take I want to dig into the effort and the knowledge and the actual help or work that it takes to get that free traffic, and in the comparison, both in terms of, if we have a standing start and start right now, you could have paid traffic literally today for the keywords that matter to you. So I'd love to hear your take on how you compare it to, or find its position for SEO.
So I will say, first of all, that paid search is great if you need to turn the spigot on immediately. There's not a lot of opportunity with SEO to do that, because SEO does take time. In fact, Google engineer Miley Oye, former Google engineer Miley Oye, famously said it takes 4 months to a year, give the SEO practitioner 4 months to a year for the results to start to come in from their work. And I think that is accurate. But the old adage, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you're not doing SEO, start today, and not tomorrow, not next month, not 2 years from now, because otherwise you're missing out on an asset that paid search is not. Paid search is a traffic source, and it is an income stream if you do it well, but it is not an asset in the same way that SEO is. SEO can put money in your pocket month after month, year after year, because you have some equity, some authority and trust that you have built up with Google by building links, by getting yourself out there and sharing your knowledge, being remarkable. And I use that term remarkable very deliberately. I'm using that term because Seth Godin in The Purple Cow defined it as being worthy of remark.
Right.
And if you have content that's worthy of remark, that can get you a lot of links and a lot of social shares, a lot of buzz, and of course create a lot of light out in there in the world. So if you think of it as, I'm building an asset by doing
Mhm.
SEO, and I'm also diversifying my traffic sources by also doing paid search.
Mhm.
I think that's a nice way to frame it, and
Would
gives
it be
you a lot of flexibility.
would it be a way, would it be fair to say, if I own a lemonade stand and I need lemons to make my lemonade to sell to my people, and paid search would be the equivalent of going and I can buy lemons and just take the lemons and process them and make it into the lemonade that I'm going to sell. And maybe what you're saying, but I have to buy the lemons at retail or at wholesale or whatever to get them, but I'm buying them individually. And maybe what you're saying is the equivalent of planting my own lemon grove, where I can nurture lemon seeds and then have an unlimited supply of the lemons that I need down the road.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I like that. I also like the analogy of you're buying a franchise, and a lot of kids are offering lemonade at the lemonade stands that you get a piece of every single one,
Right.
because
Yeah, because
that's
I'll
an
be
asset.
making way more lemons. Yeah, I'll have more lemons than I need, so I can have them for other things. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's about
and to
that's
take that analogy just one little step further, if you think of every
yeah.
page of your website as a virtual salesperson, if you
Mhm.
have 500 pages of content, that's great. That's like 500 virtual salespeople who are peddling your wares, like offering
Yes.
your products and services on Google for hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands different of keywords. But then if you go to, let's say, 5,000 pages, now you've got 5,000 virtual salespeople, and that's way better. So the more pages of quality content, that non-duplicate, not thin, just good quality, and hopefully some of it remarkable content,
Mhm.
those are so many more opportunities to rank.
Mhm.
And it is that leveraging effect of that asset spread across many thousands of pages.
So what does it actually take then to rank um, highly in Google? And where do we start with that? If we're thinking, okay, we do want to build this asset that's going to yield ongoing traffic for us.
Yeah.
Where do
So
we start?
I would suggest framing it with this kind of the 3 pillars framework, where you
Mhm.
have content, architecture, and links. And then everything goes into one of those 3 buckets.
Okay.
So let's say you have to do keyword research, that goes in the content bucket or pillar.
Mhm.
Let's say that you need to change some settings in the Yoast plugin for SEO for your WordPress site. That would go in the architecture bucket.
Mhm.
Let's say that you need to do some digital PR, public relations, and hit up some journalists and make some pitches and see if you can get featured in some articles. That would go into the links bucket. So
Okay.
these different activities, again, with a bigger outcome in mind of changing the world or whatever it is that your MTP is, all these different activities will get you there to varying degrees, speeds.
Mhm.
Your Achilles heel is that you have very little authority as far as Google sees it, because you pulled up a tool like majestic.com, and you put in your domain name, and it tells you that your trust flow is a 4 out of 100. Then you know that that's what you need to fix, and all the other stuff can just sit by the wayside for now. In terms of SEO, this is the thing to focus on. This is your Achilles heel. And this is something that a lot of people kind of miss out on. They think that they have to do everything because it's a best practice. Well, I need to go through every single one of my meta descriptions and rewrite it so that it's better. And I have 5,000 pages. That's going to take many, many hours. Well, meta descriptions don't increase your rankings. They only help with the click-through rate for wherever your position is already. If you're number 10 and you have a better snippet at number 10 because you've optimized the meta description, that really didn't move the needle much. Right? Number 10 is almost page 2. And how often do you scroll all the way down to the bottom of page 1?
Right.
So focus on the things that are the highest and best opportunities, the biggest needle movers. And if that's getting link equity, link authority, because you're in the basement in terms of your trust flow score, your citation flow score, or both, that's where you start. And it's as simple as that. And you don't need to be an SEO expert to see that. You just pull up with majestic.com for free your trust flow and citation flow score. So that's where I would start. I'd also look at things like your page speed. There are plenty of free tools that will give you some read on different issues that are in those 3 pillars. So page speed would be in the architecture pillar.
Yeah.
If you pull up Page Speed Insights, you just Google for that. You don't even have to know the URL of it. Page Speed Insights is a free tool from Google. You put your website URL like for your homepage in there, and it will tell you out of 100 what your score is. If it's a 20 and it's in the red and it says you don't pass Core Web Vitals, oops, that's a big problem. That is something that you need to address as well. And Google is going to start demoting sites that have slow loading pages that don't pass Core Web Vitals. Core Web Vitals is this new metric, or 3 metrics that Google's been talking about since last year. And the page experience algorithm is going to come live very soon. It's due to launch in May. And when it does, if you don't pass Core Web Vitals, you will get demoted. So that is something
that's kind of the thing that I always worry about or think about in this whole equation, is the unpredictability of the the algorithm that everybody talks about. All marketers kind of it feels like since it started that it used to be in the very beginning, the just keyword jamming onto your page and doing it in micro text at the bottom. And then it was linking, but they would always figure out that everybody's gaming the system, and then they would completely change it. So you'd have to start over again. How stable is what you're doing in SEO? In these things. And you have to forgive my, I don't know anything about SEO. I haven't really paid attention to it as a thing to move forward on. So I'm glad that you're here so that I can kind of, for my own situation, look at it and say, is the juice worth the squeeze in doing it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it absolutely is worth the squeeze, and it is stable as long as you're not trying to game the system.
Right.
I have been pearly white hat from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And it's not a game you can win if you are going to try and cheat the rules or ignore the rules. Google has guidelines, and whether or not we think they're fair or not, they can call the shots because it's their ball game.
Yeah.
They can say, this is something that we are not going to allow in our engine. Like, let's say that you're not allowed to talk negatively about vaccines. We will remove you from Google. And you think, wow, censorship.
That's
freedom
true,
of speech.
right.
And that should be illegal.
Yeah.
Well, since when is Google the government?
Right.
It's a company with a profit motive. And if they want to set a rule that you think is unfair, okay, well, it's unfair, but it's their search engine, and you're getting a lot of free traffic. Well, free, I put in quotes, air quotes here, because you do have to put time and energy and staff and budget towards SEO. It's not really free, but like I said, you're getting an asset, but you're getting this traffic without spending money with Google. And it comes with some rules and
Yeah.
restrictions, and you got to play by those rules and restrictions. And so if you're trying to figure out how to outsmart Google with regards to fake links,
Right.
PBNs, private blog networks, that you're trying to
Hey,
fool
you
Google
link to
into
me, I
thinking that
link
you
to
don't
you,
owe.
everybody. Right.
Well, let's say that you bought an expired domain that used to have a lot of links to it, and you're trying to fool Google into thinking that this is still a legitimate website, even though it got expired, and you snapped it up and you're pretending to be the old site owner and now link to your site as if it were a link earned by merit, and you're hoping Google is fooled by this. Like, that's a thing. That's a thing that people still try to pull off. And I never bought into that. I always thought that that is unethical, and it's bad business. It's bad, like, business karma. I just would never do it. So yeah, that's why it's stable for me and for my clients, because we don't try and play those games.
What size of business has the best sort of sweet spot for outcomes with SEO? Is it an advantage to, for big, corporate companies with huge teams and budgets and footprints versus a small business or an entrepreneur?
In some ways, yes, it is. In some ways, no.
Yeah.
Like, if you were a big business that your hands were tied in various ways, like, for example, I remember working with Chanel, and there were so many pages of the Chanel.com site that we were not allowed to put any content on. Like, it could only be images. There's no text. Like, how are you supposed to rank for keywords with pages that have no text on them? And so it felt like trying to do SEO with your hands tied behind your back, and yet they had massive amounts of authority. And so if they wanted to, and they were willing to put text on the page, they could own a lot of keywords. So in that way, they were not nimble and at a disadvantage to the small player, to the entrepreneur who's nimble, who is a quick start and just get stuff done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you are a small startup with no authority, your trust flow is a 4 out of 100. It's going to be really hard to rank for anything but your brand. Maybe even then you can't rank number one for it. Depends on what the brand name is. But regardless of what your business is, whether you're getting let's say 100% of your business right now from referrals, if it's the case, you still would benefit greatly with SEO. And it's not because you'd add another referral source. It's because maybe you would, but it's because, where do people do their due diligence?
Right.
Google.
You want them to be able to
So
find
they're on
you. Yeah,
Google.
they do it on Google.
Not just find you, but to see all the good stuff about you and nothing bad.
Right.
Like, you're curating those brand search results, so it's all of your best stuff. That it's the game is stacked in your favor. Like, everything, the shelf space is full of all your best PR and press mentions and blog posts and podcast interviews and social accounts and so forth and so on. So if that happens, then they think, okay, this guy or this gal is legit. I'm just going to work with them. And all those people that you never heard from because they were a referral that stopped when they saw that your LinkedIn was ranked number 1 instead of your actual website, or when they saw there were some negative reviews just a few positions lower on a Yelp page for your business.
Yes.
You lost it and you had no idea that it even happened.
Yeah, that's really interesting. One of the evidence, I wrote an article on Medium, a few years ago now, about the 9-word email. And so that email on Medium I get the Medium Digest or whatever, and it shows you that, and I'm constantly getting 100 to 150 reads of that article, every week for, it's been years now. And I imagine it's because in Google, if people search out 9-word email, one of the top things that comes up is that Medium article. And that's the kind of thing, I guess, what you're talking about, the long growth of that, like what the value is to get 100 eyeballs a week on something is.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Mhm.
I guess the opportunity is how I would reframe
Yeah.
that. For you is how many of those 150 are reaching out to you and saying, hey, I want to book a call. I want to
Yeah, quite a few, because at
get
the bottom of
coaching.
in the article, I offer my email mastery book that they can get at Email Mastery.
Awesome.
So that turns into people going to opt in, which is basically free traffic that you were talking about. So,
that's awesome. And just to point one thing
but it
out,
wasn't anything I did consciously.
Well, here's where it could even be on steroids, is
Right.
if it were your own website that ranked with that same article instead of Medium.
Yes.
Medium does have a lot of authority, but imagine that your website had enough authority that it outranked the Medium article, and then you could put an exit pop. You could offer a like some sort of additional irresistible offer
all of
over
that
on the right hand side, and further conversion optimize the page.
Now you're talking.
You would
like a
get
marketer,
so much
Stefan.
more lead flow. Yeah. Well, there you go. It's like James Schramko, who's a friend of both of ours, believes in owning the racetrack. Right? And if you are playing on driving the car on somebody else's racetrack, they can change the rules on you. They can kick you off the racetrack. It is not a stable platform for you. And that's what's happening, because you don't own that platform. You've built a house on rented land. And at any point in time, they could, to mix metaphors, pull the rug out from out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So would it be helpful to talk about where somebody could start? Let's say, like, I think if we think about who's here with us, we've got a few hundred people that are probably running as entrepreneurs 6- and 7-figure businesses. There's probably some people with 10 or more $1 million business, but the majority of, I would guess, are going to be mostly 6-figure on the way to $1 million or $1 million plus businesses, and they may be in lots of different things. Some local businesses, some that serve a national or international audience. So, what would be a good, like, jumping off point for people? What are some of is there an 80-20 to this, that if you're just going to do these things, that if that would be the biggest impact?
Yeah. So I love the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, but I actually learned this also from James Schramko, that the 80-20 rule is fractal. So there's actually another layer where there's an 80-20 of the 80-20. And an 80-20 of that, and so forth. So 4% of the activities that you could possibly do, or that are on your to-do list, that are going to generate 64% of your outcome. So let's find that 4%, because that's going to get you most of the way there. And if you think about SEO as some kind of technical wizardry, which many of our listeners and folks here are probably not in that boat, not in that position to go in and tweak settings and check the XML sitemaps
and wouldn't know where to start. Like, that's, I was joked that,
so give up on that.
Front of the screen. So who, not how. That's what we need.
Exactly. That's what you took the words right out of my mouth. So you get the right who
Mhm.
can do that technical wizardry for you,
Mhm.
and you just know to ask the right questions. I actually have this hiring blueprint that, and it includes a BS detector, which you can use
Okay.
when you're interviewing the technical person, the SEO practitioner, a specialist, and ask them these questions. If they get them wrong, there's only one right answer, and you don't have to be an SEO expert to know that they got the answer wrong. So,
Okay. I
for
love it.
example, you could ask them about, what's your process for optimizing my meta keywords?
Mm.
That's a trick question because meta keywords never counted in Google, ever, not
Okay.
on day one.
Okay.
So if they say something like, well, those don't count as much as they used to, but here's what we do, that's as wrong of an answer as, oh, we love meta keywords. Like, it's all wrong unless they said meta keywords never counted, because that's
Mm.
the right answer. So if
Okay.
you know what the right answer is and you have the cheat sheet of all these questions to ask, and you just kind of fold a few into the interview, then you're hiring the right person, or at
Mhm.
least somebody who's skilled, even if you're not skilled in SEO yourself. And so that handles the technical side of it. But what about the creative kind of content side of it? And there's not a lot of wizardry involved here. That's the beauty of it. Like, for example, let's say that you wanted to come up with an editorial calendar for not just social media, but for blogging and for videos, and just for all the content that you're going to produce for your content marketing. Well,
Mhm.
you could use a tool called alsoasked.com.
Okay.
Alsoasked.com. And what that does is you put in a keyword. I don't know, let's say it's podcasting, and it will come back with all of these different questions that people are asking Google. Then you can take those questions and create an FAQ page, or you could create a bunch of blog posts around that, and you can schedule those out, and that's your editorial calendar.
Mhm.
You can do this for a number of different keywords, and this tool is based on the people also asked box. That's why it's called alsoasked.com. When you are searching on Google and you see a bunch of questions related to your search query, in addition to all the regular results,
Oh
and
yeah,
you can
down at the
click on those
bottom, right?
questions,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, well, or just shortly lower down the page,
Mhm.
you start clicking on these questions, and it will not only expand to show the answer, but it will keep adding more and more questions. It's kind of like a bottomless pit, right? And you can go very deep down that rabbit hole. Imagine
Yeah.
having a free tool that, in a great kind of tree structure sort of visual, shows you a bunch of these questions. And then at any point, you can click on one question, and then it recenters that as the beginning of the tree, and then does another query for you, and comes up with all of these additional questions. And you can save this to an Excel spreadsheet. You can save it as a PNG file, like as an image.
Mhm.
And like I said, you can use that as fodder for determining what your editorial calendar is, or what should go on your FAQs page, or what you're going to shoot videos about. It's really,
So would it
really
be
a
fair to
great free
say
tool.
then this is what would fall into uh this is what would be called keyword research? Is that what you're looking at? Is essentially seeing
Yep.
what, because beginning with the end in mind, you would guess to think about what is it that we want to be the answer to when people are going to Google.
Yep.
And
Yep.
would it be fair to say, or is it true that you would be looking for the most traffic, or the ones where you've maybe got the best chance of making an impact? Like if we
It's
take
kind of
a
a it's kind of a combination. There are
yeah.
three criteria that I would recommend evaluating a good keyword by. One
Mhm.
is it attainable that I can rank on page one for that? Because if you're in
Mhm.
page two, you're in no man's land.
Mhm.
Can I also so can I attain that ranking? Can I attract my target audience with that? Is that relevant to my
Mhm.
business or to my audience?
Mhm.
And then is it popular? Are there actually enough searches for that keyword that it warrants my time? So
That's
those are
what I
the
mean.
three
Yeah, is the
criteria.
juice worth the squeeze? Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you think about, let's go laterally a bit broader and think, right, let's say that I'm selling something that doesn't have a huge keyword search volume for it. I don't know, let's say that baby bassinet is,
Mhm.
let's say you make bassinets and you sell
Mhm.
them online. Maybe the search volume isn't that high for bassinet and baby bassinets, et cetera. But if you think about who your audience is, it's expectant parents, right?
Mhm.
So what are expectant parents searching for? So you go to where the fish are and do your fishing there. And in the case of expectant parents, they are searching for baby names
Mhm.
in droves. Like that is a massive keyword, and it's only expectant parents. How many people are searching for baby names that don't have a new baby on the way? Probably nobody.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's your target audience. That's who you're going after. And sure, you're not selling baby names, but
Yes.
you're reaching your audience and you're going to add value. You're going to do content marketing. You're going to maybe provide some remarkable content around baby name meanings or new
Yes.
like trends, or maybe like
Yes.
spiritual baby names or conscious baby names or whatever. And it resonates with your exact audience. And then you can
Mhm.
have that soft sell of the essential nesting checklist, those 31 things that you're going to need for your new baby when he or she arrives, and
Okay.
it includes
I
a
just had a
bassinet.
okay, I just had a light bulb come on for me because now we're saying something in a world that I understand now. I see something that came clear. One of the things that I was talk about with our reaching people is that sometimes it doesn't have to be exactly the thing that you do. You said baby bassinets, that a lot of people aren't searching on that. Years ago, I did some work with a party rental company in Toronto, in Canada. And I asked them, I said, what would be the dream come true client for you? Like, what's the home run, the best client that you could get? And they said an outdoor wedding would be a home run because you get the tents and generators and linens and tables. They need everything, right? And but party rental companies are like way down on the list of sexy things that a new bride and groom or potential bride and groom are searching for, right? Or looking, or even on their mind. But what's high on their mind as soon as they get engaged is, where are we going to have the wedding and when? That's the first two items on the list, right?
Right.
So we put together a directory of 101 great places to have an outdoor wedding in Toronto and started advertising this directory, which was getting amazing response because that's the thing that people were interested and excited about. And now he had that audience to himself because he's the only party rental company that had identified people early on in the process. So now I get what you're saying about, as a content strategy, is what would be the content that your market is searching for, that maybe it's not directly related to, you know, buy a baby bassinet. It's not somebody looking to buy something, but it's somebody who's in the world that's going to require at some point a bassinet. That's
Yeah.
smart. And that's, so you're saying
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that would have the longest reaching impact, not just the um, competing on, yeah, baby bassinet prices or for
Right.
sale or
Right.
anything like that. Right.
So we're looking for that 4% that generates the 64%. Yeah. And
Well,
here's
now we're getting
another
somewhere,
way to
Stefan.
it's about time.
Yeah.
So if you think about, how do I get links in
Yes.
droves as well,
Yeah.
you got to have something super remarkable there that is so worthy of remark that it causes everybody to just proactively, without prompting, link to you. I mean, it's going to help, of course, if you outreach to folks and let them know about your content. But imagine if it's so buzzworthy and link worthy that folks just want to beat a path to your door. They want us to link to you from their blogs, from their resource lists and their homepages and everywhere else. So
Yes.
if you think about what could be an incredibly valuable piece of content that is so link worthy and shareable that it's just going to have a life of its own. Let me give you an example or two. So
Okay.
this is an old one, and it's not even mine. It's from another SEO who will remain nameless because he cut some corners. But back in the day when Dig was a thing, before Reddit was the king,
Reddit,
it was really Dig, Digg, and he had all of these accounts that were like in the top 100. You had some top 10 ones as well. So anyways, he utilized that, and he also liked to cut corners in terms of the content creation. So he found this article for his client. The client was lifeinsure.com, and it was a small life insurance brokerage, probably had a dozen or fewer employees. And what was the magic here is he found this article online, 20 things you didn't know about death. He just lopped off one of the items, made it 19 things you probably don't know about death. And he put it on this life insurance website, and he hid it so that it was only available if you found it through Dig. And he submitted it to Dig, of course. And it made the front page of Dig. Imagine if you could make the front page of Reddit today. It's the front page of the internet. It's a big deal. And he got tons and tons of links for his clients. It was a disturbing article too. Like, nobody's going to buy insurance after reading that you're still conscious for 15 to 20 seconds after getting decapitated. So
oh my goodness,
that's the sort of stuff that was in that article. And he just kind of quickly paraphrased it. It was another article he found online, but it did incredibly well, not just on Dig, but as I said, with getting links. And these were not people who were looking for life insurance. This is like 13-year-old alpha geeks who think, oh, that's cool, I'm going to link to that, or I'm going to drop that in my blog, right? And so all of those links propped up the entire lifeinsure.com website. The homepage, all the landing pages, term life quotes, whole life quotes, universal life quotes, etc. They all started to rank much higher, and it actually got to the point where just from that one article, the term life insurance returned the homepage for lifeinsure.com, like I think it was at number 3 or 4. And it stayed on page 1 for years. It was right up there with State Farm and MetLife and Geico. It's this tiny little insurance brokerage. So this is how you punch above your weight, not by cutting corners, not that extreme, but by thinking outside of the box and creating something that's so remarkable. It's a foregone conclusion that you're going to link to it when you see it.
That's amazing. So do you have some examples of that, like how, because I'd be interested to see what your approach would be. I would ask people if people would just get out of the way and let you do what you could do for them, what's the kind of dream come true scenario that you can create through SEO?
Oh, so many. So this is a pretty recent one from last year. We took over the Pinterest account of Everypedia, which is a competitor to Wikipedia. It's built on the blockchain. And we got their Pinterest account from 31 monthly viewers to over 1 million.
Wow.
So 1 million monthly viewers in an 8-month time period. Yeah. So they just gave us the keys and said, knock yourselves out because we can't figure out this Pinterest thing. And if you can, that'll be amazing. And we did. We just crushed it for them. And another example, this is an old one, but many years ago, overnightprints.com. They print
Mhm.
business cards and all that overnight. They weren't ranking very well, or not at all, for the term business cards. They were just buried for that. And I came up with a contest idea of win free business cards for life. It was the free business cards for life contest.
I like that.
And you could design Jeremy Shoemaker's new business card, if you remember Shoe Money.
Yes.
He didn't like his business card. I knew that. And he loved his logo, though. He had his logo, like the Superman S logo thing,
Mhm.
on the bottom of his pool and everything. So I knew he liked that, but he didn't like his business card. So I approached him. I said, hey, how about we do this contest and we'll get all these great entries, and you'll end up with an amazing business card. And he did. He loved
Mhm.
the winner. It was like a super cool chip looking credit card business card that won. And the winner got free business cards for life, which in the small print was 20 years worth of 1,000 business cards per year, which is pocket change. And so that put them on the map to the point where not only were they ranking for business cards on page 1, they got all the way up to number 2. And they didn't do any on-page stuff because all the stuff that we wanted to do on their site, we just kept getting roadblocks and more roadblocks. And so we weren't able to achieve anything in terms of on-page SEO. It was purely from that one contest.
Would you say, I mean, that's exciting too, when you start to think about the all the possibilities there. Would you say that being a local business or having a smaller geographic area where you're trying to impact one community is easier or more difficult than, is that, for businesses that might be local businesses?
Yeah. It's easier in the sense that it's less competitive. I mean, there is competition in the form of Yelp and these other national or international sites that rank for a lot of different geographies. But you're competing with smaller businesses. Like if you're in the restaurant space, you're competing with local restaurants, and many of them don't know SEO from anything. And so you have a competitive edge if you know a little bit about SEO. And one thing about local SEO that's good to not only know but execute on is that local links are important and make a really good difference. So if you're chasing after links from the local chamber and convention and visitors bureau and local chapters of nonprofits like the
Is that where
Lions
things
and
like writing articles on the local newspaper would be a useful thing, to have articles that are on their site?
Potentially. Let me preface that by saying you got to do a little bit of homework first to see if it is going to be worthwhile or it's going to be a waste of your time. Like meta descriptions are not a total waste of your time, but they won't move you up the rankings. So it's very much a second order activity. If I would go to the local, let's say, business journal's website and see that they never link out in their articles, or when they do, there are no followed links, meaning that they strip any link equity from flowing out to the right. So I'm doing my due diligence first before I say, hey, I will write for free for you. I'll be an unpaid journalist for you. That sounds great for them, but not so great for you if you don't get any juice out of it. So you got to see if the juice is worth the squeeze yourself. Before you just say, oh, well, Stefan said you should write for a local business journal. Your mileage will vary. It depends on the scenario. So if it's a local nonprofit and you're, let's say, on the board of that local nonprofit, like it's the American Marketing Association, Madison, Wisconsin chapter or something like that. And you are putting a lot of time into, I don't know, an event that you guys are doing, or the newsletter, or maybe there's a resource site or something that you guys are launching. I'm not saying don't do it because you're not going to get the link equity, but at least know ahead of time if you're going to get any SEO value from all those activities, because maybe that's going to be a consideration, a factor in your decision to put all that time into it.
Do you have any, like I consider the 9-word email like a magic trick that we could share that with somebody, they could do it today and get some result. Is there anything that would be something that everybody listening should be able to at least do this, or maybe a couple of things, if there's something that they could do to dip their toe in the water here, or to get some kind of outcome?
Yeah. So start with your homepage. That is the
Okay.
most important page of your site as far as Google is concerned in almost all cases. And start with the most important element of that page as far as Google's concerned. That's your title tag. It's the first thing, the most prominent thing that appears in your search listing. And if there are no good keywords in there, that's a big missed opportunity. And then you think, well, what are good keywords? If you use a tool like Google Trends, which is a free tool, then you'll get a sense for which keywords are popular versus other keywords. You have to compare them with each other, because the tool only provides percentages. It doesn't provide actual numbers. But if you put in, let's say, laptop, comma, laptops, comma, MacBooks, comma, MacBook Pro or MacBook Pro, try and compare the singular and plural. You could put a little string of keywords there separated by commas, and you can see which one's the most popular. And then you could say, all right, laptop or whatever the keyword is the most popular. I'm not using any keywords right now. It's just the name of my company, and then it says dash homepage. That's a big oops. Let's fix that. And let's put our most important keyword that we're trying to rank for. We'll put it in the title tag. And don't make a spammy keyword list for your title tag. Just make it read well and be value focused, and maybe even have a a little bit of intrigue in there, or a kind of a curiosity gap. If you're building up tension in the reader and the visitor, the Google searcher's mind, and then they have to click in order to have that tension relieved. Like BuzzFeed is fantastic at this with their headlines, right?
Yeah, they are.
So if you have some curiosity gap that you create with your title, that would be the best of all possible worlds: keyword and value proposition and curiosity gap. But 2 out of 3 I'll be happy with as well. So just make it better than what you have now, and that's an easy win. The homepage will get crawled by Googlebot very quickly. Probably it will get re-indexed in the Google search index pretty quickly as well, and then hopefully you'll see some improvement. You'll maybe check the rankings beforehand. Say, oh, I'm number 8 now for whatever my keyword is. Let's see if I can move the needle a bit. And oh, wow. A week later, I'm at number 7. Yay. That's a win.
Right.
Another thing that you can do is to get your Google Search Console account claimed if you haven't already. And then you can see not only what your position is for you as a searcher individually, but you can see the average across all of the searchers who are typing in that keyword. And that shows up in your Google Search Console performance report. And that's a free tool as well. So if you don't have access to Google Search Console, just Google it and follow the instructions to add your site. And for free, now you're going to start getting data on how many clicks you're getting for which keywords, how many impressions don't lead to clicks, and then your CTR, of course, taking into account both of those numbers, the clicks and impressions, and you can start making tweaks and seeing how you move the needle. Because, you know, as Peter Drucker famously said, what gets measured gets managed. And if you're not
Yeah.
tracking your rankings and the traffic coming and so forth, you don't know if you're winning or losing.
So none of these, all of those words that you've just said, I have no understanding of as the technical terms of those. But I'm happy that I know that what these things are, that they exist, that there are who can help with this kind of stuff. I'm curious about, is there how would you budget in terms of the cost and the time of moving forward with an SEO plan, and what timeline of when you might expect to see some results from that, or what you might what those results might be?
Yeah. So the prices run the gamut, and here's where you have to be very careful, right? Caveat emptor, buyer beware, because if you spend $500 a month on SEO, you're probably in a much worse position than if you spent nothing at all. Because the people who are willing to take $500 a month for SEO are not only not good at SEO, probably, they are probably atrocious at it, and in getting you bad results or no results, and potentially lying to you in the process so that you keep paying them while you're still not getting the results. So the danger is you could end up with a sullied link profile where it's just toxic. People have linked to you that are spammy and are not legitimate websites, or they have bad juju. You know, it's like porn sites or scams or malware infected sites or whatever. They're linking to you now, and they weren't before, and it's because of this bad SEO firm that you inadvertently hired. So you got to be very, very careful. If you don't have, let's say, more than a couple $1,000s a month, then you probably better off not hiring an SEO firm until you save up, let's say, $5,000 or $10,000, and you just buy a one-off SEO audit, and just stop there. If you hire somebody for even like $1,500 a month, probably they're not going to be very good. It's rare that you could hire somebody good. It's like trying to find a house that is $20,000. Like, what are you going to get for $20,000?
Yeah.
So I would
and I think that's
start
an
with the audit.
important thing. I think that's an important thing, though, to make, but I often say to people to look at not thinking about it as an expense, but thinking about it as a capital investment. Because what you're doing with SEO, it's not an expense that I spent $500 on SEO this month and I didn't get anything. It's not that. It's that you invested $2,000 a month or whatever it was for a period of time to build this, this SEO footprint, or whatever I don't know what the word would be, but all of these assets that you're creating that are going to bring you traffic for ever and ever and ever. And that's kind of I get it, that's a better way to think about it.
Now, if you have, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000 a month, then you could also, in addition to maybe doing some auditing of your website and finding all the issues and missed opportunities, might be able to do some link building as well. Now, PR firms are not inexpensive, but this is a specialized form of PR that normally you either end up hiring a really bad firm that builds low quality links, and those end up getting you in trouble, like I described, the link spam, that these are toxic links. The alternative is to hire a really good firm, and that firm charges kind of like a monthly retainer. And like most PR firms, they would charge that retainer and keep that retainer regardless of whether they get you the results or not. And that can be really frustrating. It's like the PR firm coming back to you saying, you know what, we couldn't get any results this month because coronavirus just took over the entire news cycle, and nobody, like none of the journalists would return our calls, and they all
But we
pushed us
sure
off
worked
and so
hard.
forth.
Yeah.
We sure did. And I'm like, that's not good consolation for me. I don't feel any better about that. So I want to get a pay for performance arrangement if I'm in the position of the client. So that's what we offer, is pay for performance link building.
That's awesome. Well,
And
great.
so let's say that your budget is $5,000 a month for that. So that's the monthly retainer that you would pay at the beginning of the month. And then the links that we build would be costed out based on the authority scores of the linking websites, like the trust flow and the domain rating. DR is the metric, and Ahrefs, another great SEO tool. And we just have a formula, calculate what the price is going to be for that particular link.
Yeah.
And it adds up all those different links to the month's budget retainer. And then we move on to the next month. And if a link got stripped out of, or the opportunity fell through or whatever, okay, well, that's not going to cost the client. That's on us. We got to replace that link. And then we go and we replace that link, and we just have to backfill it from that previous month. So that's how we work on a pay for performance basis. And that's how I recommend finding a service provider that does this, is if they're willing to put skin in the game and get paid for performance, then you've got the right firm working for you.
That's amazing. So where are you able, can we have people, if they have some questions about this, we've got a real, I no doubt that you are working from your wisdom bookshelf. I say it. You're in field reports, not book reports. You're not book smart about this. You're actually in the field smart about it. So we've got someone who can really answer questions there. But before I open it up, where can people reach out to you if they want you to be their who for this? Because I think it's one of those things where it's very costly to try and figure it out on your own, I guess. That's, yeah. So.
So me at stefanspencer.com,
okay.
me at stefanspencer.com. So that's how to email me. And my website is stefanspencer.com. And there's a ton of resources.
That just sent
on
me
there.
into a loop here. That feel like it feels like I'm emailing me at Stefan Spencer. My mind just went into this loop that's you. Okay, you at Stefan. Shouldn't I email you? Me at Stefan Spencer.
me at stefanspencer.com.
Okay, perfect.
That's funny. Yeah. Oh, and that's where stefanspencer.com is the website where you'd find the SEO BS detector with the trick questions.
I love that. That's great.
So you go to the learning center, and it's on that page and the resources.
I'm sure that there may be some BS detector stories that people might have about some SEO experience too. So.
Oh my goodness, I have some too. It's just really funny that so one of my clients asked me to second interview a potential in-house SEO guy.
Yeah.
And I asked him what his favorite SEO tool was, and he said it was Majestic SEO.
Oh.
And I knew it. My spidey sense was already tingling, because Majestic had rebranded from Majestic SEO several years earlier. And I thought, okay, he's using the old name. So let's dig a little deeper. So I said, what's that metric in Majestic, that really important metric? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's AC rank. And I'm like, I gotcha. I didn't say that, but I knew it in my mind because
Yeah.
AC rank was deprecated 3 years earlier, replaced with trust flow and citation flow. And this was his favorite SEO tool. So he was out and he didn't even know it yet. I quickly wrapped up the interview and thank you very much.
Amazing. All right. Well, that's I want to hear what people have to if they have any questions or any stories. Eunice or Tarna.
I've got a couple
Maybe.
questions that have come in from the chat if you'd like me to.
Okay, great. There we
Dean.
go. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. That's a good idea.
Awesome. So Serge said something that I think sums up this whole session very well. He said paid search and SEO is like hiring kids to run around knocking on doors selling your lemonade. So that one came in a little bit earlier, but I thought that was a good one. All right, Stefan. So if you were to approach the demoting of sites in regard of load speed, what would be your first 3 steps?
So I believe in hiring the right who, and one of the 10-minute talks from this month, Genius Network meeting, was Dan Wilkinson, pagespeedoptimize.com, and he is a wizard at this. Okay, there he is. Hey, Dan. So I highly recommend him. I've sent a bunch of clients his way, and he's he's amazing.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Okay. And then Dawn asked, great perspective, Stefan. Where does Schema fit into the 3 pillars? What important ways does local SEO differ from national versus global?
Okay, so those are 2 different questions. Let's start with the Schema question. So schema.org is a markup of it's the ability to add structured data behind the scenes in the HTML code that the search engines can use for whatever different purposes, perhaps to create rich snippets in the search results. You know how you see sometimes a search listing that has a star rating, or it has a price, or a stock availability, or lists an event. These are rich snippets. They're expanded listings, and that's powered a lot by schema.org markup. And that means you got to do the work of spoon feeding that content to the search engine, saying, here is the price of the product. Here is the stock availability. Here's the product name, etc. Here are the number of ratings. Here are the number of reviews. Here's the average rating, etc. All that needs to be marked up. And a lot of that can be done kind of automatically. Again, this is something that you'd want to hire the right who for and have them mark up that in the templates, or use, let's say if you're on a WordPress, let's say, you have an e-commerce site on WordPress with WooCommerce, get the right plugin. If it's not already built into the theme that you're using, that handles all this for you so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And again, the right who will know which plugin, and they will recommend that, and they'll maybe install it and test it, make sure it's all working appropriately. Yeah, so that's Schema. And one of the easiest, most valuable pieces of Schema markup that we can all benefit from is Schema organization markup or Schema person markup. It depends on what type of site it is. If you have a personal website, then it's person markup. So stefanspencer.com would be Schema person markup. And if it's a company, like a company brand, then it would be organization markup. And one aspect of this that is really valuable is, let's say it's an organization, it's a company, and you have added the organization markup, or your who has, then the same as attribute that can be added provides a list of perhaps 5 or 6 social profiles, like your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Pinterest, your YouTube, right? And if you're in Wikipedia, put your Wikipedia there too. If you have a listing in Crunchbase, a listing on Bloomberg.com, etc., angel.co, list all those as well in your same as list in your schema markup. And then when you see these right-hand, they're called knowledge panels over on the right-hand side of the search results. If you're searching for your name, like you search for me, for example, Stephan Spencer, and you'll find a panel over on the right. It's called a knowledge panel. It lists my books. It lists, it has a little description of me from my Wikipedia article. It has photos of me. It has all my social chiclets, and those social chiclets, if you click on them, it leads to my YouTube or my Facebook or what have you. Well, that comes from the schema markup. If you don't do it, then you make it harder for Google to find your social accounts and to list all of those social chiclets in your knowledge panel. It also makes it harder for you to even have a knowledge panel if you don't have the organization markup with all the same as attributes. So
wonderful. I think that actually just answered Dean's question in the chat also. What if you're a solo biz with a small team and have a limited budget? That's having the knowledge panel set up for anybody is important, right?
Yes, and you don't have to have any budget. You could use the free version of the Yoast SEO plugin, which supports adding schema organization or schema person markup. And you can just read the help page on yoast.com about how to add, fill in those fields. And hopefully that will maybe even trigger a knowledge panel to get created. If you already have one, it'll certainly help with filling all of those social slots there with your social profiles.
Awesome. Okay, 2 more simple questions, I think. One, Mario Ficini was asking, is there an ideal length when it comes to the title tag?
It's not about the number of characters. In fact, you can have a long title tag that exceeds the certain width, and it's not a character width, it's actually a pixel width. It's 512 pixels. Yes, I'm a geek who memorizes all this stuff. So if it's a smaller character, like the letter I, it takes up less width in pixels. If it's the letter M or W, it'll take up more. So whatever that 512 pixels equals in characters will depend on what those characters are. But let's just say for a rough gauge or rule of thumb, it might be 50 to 60 characters, right? So if it's longer than that, the characters that are lopped off in the search listing still count in the rankings algorithm. They're just not displayed. You'll see a ... in the search listing, and the rest of it will be, omitted from the search listing. Is that a bad thing? Well, maybe it's slightly bad, but in some cases, actually a benefit, because then you might have a curiosity gap that you've created, right? The best thing about SEO is ... and you're like, don't, I want to know what that is. Click. Oh, it's links or whatever. It's like whatever that thing was, you had to click and go to my website to read the rest of it. So that's not a bad thing. And I don't think I answered the question that was kind of the part 2 of the schema question around local. So if we have time, we can circle back on that one too.
Awesome. And I think local, global, and national, local for sure, because that's been coming up quite a bit in the chat. One other question that came in earlier from Serge, any good SEO AI tools that you suggest or are playing around with these days?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Let's say you want to write some copy. There are some AI-based tools like copy.ai is one that comes to mind. There's another new one that just launched from Dave Rogenmoser. It's called conversion.ai. There's, if you want to create videos, there's lumen5.com, which is AI based. It'll take a blog post or article and turn that into a video. It has a huge stock photo and stock video library, a bunch of background music, and it figures out what the bullet points are based on the content of the article and what transitions to use and what background music to use and everything. And it'll create a draft video for you that you can easily edit. That's really cool because from an SEO perspective, if you've got a great like social sharing video, that can help your blog post. That's the further expansion of that topic or that that video, get more links, right? So that's something that you want to drive people to the blog post from that video, and for the full information, all of the additional resources and so forth. And like a more full service AI based SEO tool, Market Muse. So that's very heavy on AI. You know, I heard this at Abundance 360 from Peter Diamandis, and I'm paraphrasing this quote, but it's something like this. There are going to be two kinds of businesses by the end of the decade: businesses that use AI at their core, and businesses that are out of business. So take that one to heart. And if you aren't at least playing around with AI, you know, at least know about GPT-3. If you've never heard of it, Google it, go to openai.com and play with some of the demos and look at what they're up to. Because if you know that Google is just killing it with AI, hopefully not killing us with Boston Dynamics robots and all that in the future. But if you think about all of the AI algorithms that are powering Google, how do you outsmart an AI? Any ideas? Yeah, there's really only one way to outsmart an AI.
Is that with another AI?
Exactly. Thank you, Tarna. You nailed it. Yeah. So if you are not at least playing with AIs, you're going to miss the boat, and that's not going to be good for you.
Wonderful. There's a couple other questions that have come in. Dean, you want me to keep going with? There's two others.
Oh, you're on mute.
I see you talking, but I'm not hearing you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, let's go to the two more, and then we can wrap up. Boy, this is like, it's fascinating, but we're coming up to 4 o'clock. It's crazy.
I know, it happens so fast. There's been so much that has happened here today, and if there's one thing you do the title tag.
Yeah.
Get that done before the end of the day. Okay, so Stefano asked, do you have any suggestions on page structure for a professional services firm that wants to rank in various cities? I suspect it's not advisable to have all the city keywords on the homepage.
That is correct. I would create a little directory of the different locations, a page for each location, and the content needs to be unique. You can't just have the same description copy on each of the pages with the city name changed. Let's say that you have 10 locations, and each location has a different staff. They have different subject matter experts and different clients and different success stories and testimonials and so forth. You can populate each of those location pages with unique content that helps sell the location and the value that you offer from that location, and differentiate that locations page from the other locations that you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting, that apply to franchises too, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yep.
That's a pro tip there. That's a big one for a lot of law firms and a lot of service providers and individuals. Okay, so I think that's a wonderful segue into the last question I have here, Dean, for us, is circling back to the what important ways does SEO differ from national, global, but I think we should talk about local too, because I know we've got a lot of people that run local businesses on.
Yeah, I think so too. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So local SEO is a little bit of a different beast, because you do have factors that go into the equation that are unique, that are not really applicable to national. So for example, distance from the city centroid. If you are way out in the boonies and your competitor is in downtown, they have a leg up in the algorithm. Because who wants to drive 30 minutes to get to the dry cleaner when they can go 2 blocks? So that's a factor that comes into play with local. And as I said earlier, local search takes into account local links. So if you're not getting links from your local area, focus on that, because that's a miss. if, and this also applies to global and other national locations, if you are outside of the US and you're, let's say, in Canada or the UK, well, then you're trying to rank in google.ca or google.co.uk. And if you don't, again, have local links for that market, if you don't have Canadian links, if you don't have UK links, it's all from the US, that doesn't look like you're the most relevant business in your niche in that market.
Right.
So local links. If you're trying to rank in a other country search engine, Google engine, like, again, let's use google.co.uk, and you're let's say the all these factors we went over, page speed and schema.org markup and all that, if that's all in order and you've got one little setting wrong, like for example, inside of Google Search Console, that's that free tool that I told Dean and everybody to make sure you're signed up for. It's free from Google, so make sure you have it. Inside of there, you can change or set your preferred geographic region.
Mhm.
And if you had it wrong, let's say that it was set to the US and you're in the UK, you just destroyed your chances of ranking in google.co.uk just with one little setting.
Wow.
So make sure that you get it right. Normally, the right setting is to not set it at all and just let it be global. Yeah. But there are lots of nuances. If you're talking about global across many languages and countries and regions, then you definitely need to take into account hreflang tags. But I don't want to make everybody's eyes glaze over who don't have multinational businesses. So it is one of those technical aspects. You just ask the right who, make sure that we are set up right in with our hreflang tags. And again, there are plenty of free tools out there that will give you insight into this stuff. You don't even need to rely on the who to tell you if it's working or not. You just go to, in this case, technicalseo.com, and there's an hreflang checker that you could put in your website URL yourself and see, oh, is it working or is it messed up? And then you tell the right who, this is broken, please fix it. And take a screenshot showing that it's broken in that hreflang checker tool. And you say, this is a problem. I don't know how to fix it, but I bet you do.
That's amazing. Well, I think, Stefan, there's so much wisdom here. I mean, definitely, you definitely have a deep, deep well of knowledge about this. I appreciate you coming to share it. So stefanspencer.com and email me at stefanspencer.com to reach out.
Oh, and subscribe to my podcasts too, because
subscribe to your podcasts. There you go.
Marketing Speak and Get Yourself Optimized.
There we go. Perfect. It's eye-opening. I appreciate you taking the time. I feel like we've just kind of scratched the surface of what's here, but I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate everybody joining in with us. Next month we do the same. We're back with another I Love Marketing meetup Zoom. I love doing these Zooms. It's great to connect and see everybody. And I believe that next month we have Robert Cialdini. Is that right, Tarna? Is that
close? Robert's going to come in April.
Okay. He's coming in April. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So let's just talk about March and April while we're here.
Okay, there we go. April, Robert Cialdini. And then who do we have in March?
Michael Bruce.
Okay, there you go. You can't lose.
You cannot
These are two great ones. No.
That one will be ready for everybody to get registered in just about an hour. So sign up for that one. You don't want to miss Michael Bruce. And I'm sure you can tell a little bit more about him if you want, but that'll be a great one.
What's the date of it?
Same date, since there's only 28 days in February. So it's March 17th, St. Patty's Day.
March 17th.
Yep.
Okay.
11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect.
I love
I love it.
marketingzoom.com to register and join us here live on Zoom. And then also,
I
I want
love
to point out, we had so many people watching on YouTube today. Gina, go ahead and pop that in the chat again and share that, especially with your webmaster or with those on your team that speak some of this technobabble. And I just wanted to say thank you, Dean, for helping
Technobabble.
us stay on the ground, because it's
Yeah,
so easy to get so big with the with SEO. But what's
Oh yeah, no, I'm
thank you.
not ashamed to let you know I don't know any of that technical stuff. So I was doing it for me to get to the real language of stuff. So yeah, and Stefan, you're great. It was awesome to you know come down to my understanding level. I appreciate that. All right.
Well, I appreciate you, Dean. You are a gift to not just the marketing community, but to humanity. You are just full of so much love and generosity and kindness. Yeah, it's not just the 9-word email that made you famous
It's
or
not
whatever.
just 9-word emails.
It's like who you are as a soul. I just think you're a beautiful human and a beautiful soul. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think we can't, let's end it on that. That's fantastic. If you were here with us live, don't forget to save the chat. So many great resources in there. Gina's been taking great notes all the way along. So you'll get all of those links and resources that she had there. So don't forget to save that. And then we'll see you next month. Same time, same channel. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.
Okay, bye guys.
Merci Dean. Merci Dean. Bye. Merci Stefan. Merci Gina and Genius team.